I think at the end of the day, as researchers, we're trying to take the wheat from the chaff.
There's one golden rule for researchers in this business. Thou shalt not hoax. Not ever.
Sorry, I get excited sometimes. I'm sorry.
I know. Every ounce of misinformation or bad evidence, it takes 15 pounds worth of effort to try to make up for it. 15 pounds of effort for every ounce of bullshit that's out there.
high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dare to, why, oh, why can't
Good afternoon. We want to thank all of you for joining us on this Father's Day afternoon podcast. My name's Jerry Matthews. And the other guys don't have any names.
We're not saying anything.
Not without your lawyer, huh? Okay. I got
Checking
you.
your Alzheimer levels.
Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Who we are?
Thomas Steenberg, Leon Thompson, and our special guest today is Sheldon Quewezance from Nicola Valley Bigfoot Merritt, BC. Now, Sheldon has a weekly talk show where people call in their experiences and encounters with what they believe to be the Sasquatch, as well as discussing other paranormal incidents and the like. He's also the organizer of the recent Nicola Valley Bigfoot Conferences, and we're going to talk about that later in the podcast, so stick around. And right now, we shall welcome Sheldon. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Is it raining over where you guys are? It's pouring here.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It never stops. It never stops.
Has been for a couple of days now.
I should correct you really quick, Jerry. I'm not really doing the podcast as much anymore. Well, I haven't done one in a while. Just life kind of got in the way, and there's so many podcasts that kind of popped out of nowhere in the past year. Finding guests was becoming a very tedious task. So I just kind of put it on the back burner for now to focus on the conference. But I do want to bring it back. So
yeah, I thought I heard somewhere that you were thinking about bringing it back again.
Yeah,
I mean,
I do want to do it again. Yeah.
Personally, I think I'm skeptic. But we're all skeptics here, all three of us. But I'm a skeptic, and it takes more than an anecdotal story to get my crank turned. You know, I want a little bit of evidence backup to go along with it. Make it more plausible. But I can really, at the same time, understand the benefit that your show offers people. People who heard something, saw something, not sure what they saw or what they heard, but this is what happened to them and what they believe happened to them. And they get a chance to talk to you about it, and as you would say, a safe, reliable place where, you're not going to be mocked, made fun of, or anything like that. If you think you saw something, I'm no person to say you didn't, You probably did. I don't know what you saw any more than you do, but feel free to chat about it. That's what we're here for, kind of thing. Yeah. And anyway, I would encourage you. I would encourage you to bring it back again. There's not enough places like that where people can feel safe and confident with who they're talking to. I got to admit, Merritt. I like Merritt. I really do like Merritt. And God, I think 12 years ago, we got our dog from Angels Rescue in Merritt. And back in 2016, ATVBC had the big poker ride there. We spent 3 days camped in the rodeo grounds, and then 3 days cruising around the hills up there on ATVs and UTVs. It was. I still got the T-shirt. I should have worn it tonight, but. And of course, last year at the conference, all of us were there at the conference last year. Yeah, it's a lovely place. I just love it up there. I just love that country. Yeah. So tell me, you're originally from Saskatchewan, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So where did your interest in this subject of the Sasquatch? Did it start in Saskatchewan or did it start in BC?
Yeah, it actually did start in Saskatchewan. Quick story is there's this thing in Saskatchewan called Batoche Days, and it's more of a Métis celebration, but they do this big camp out. It's by Batoche Lake. And me and my older brother, we were quite young at the time, probably 6 and 7 maybe, and we were sitting by the fire. And these three gentlemen came to warm up, and they sat at our fire for a while. And I don't know if they were into scaring the kids or what, but he started talking about these screams that they hear at night and these creatures that run through the woods. Because believe it or not, Saskatchewan has a lot of forest. Once you hit the northern half of Saskatchewan, it is nothing but trees. And he was telling us about these creatures that get seen in the night, and these monsters that roam the forest, and the screams that you'll never be able to forget. And ever since then, there was a lot that went off in my head. So back in school, I'd go look into the school library and find the paranormal section, obviously. And there was a book by a gentleman named Gary Cohen. And he was one of those authors that put together, a few stories. One was Loch Ness Monster, the New Jersey Devil, and he had one chapter dedicated to Sasquatch, and it had a picture of Patty on it as I was looking back, the famous
352, yeah.
Yeah. And ever since then, I was fascinated, but it stuck in the back of my mind. And when I moved to BC in 2000, the thought was always there, obviously, but it didn't turn into anything until I was carpooling with my two best friends. And I'm sure you guys might have met them at the conference last year, but somebody had posted, a mutual friend of the three of us posted these really, really beautiful prints that were left behind in a mud bog. And that got us talking one night on the way home from work. We were carpooling and we were talking on the way home. I was like, well, if he can find those, like, we can. So that's where we kind of that's where the origin of the Sasquatch group came, and it was just kind of it just steamrolled from there. It was just like, okay, we were going out 2 or 3 times a week almost, and we were finding things, and we were finding tracks, and we were hearing howls, and we had a sighting, and finally it led to the pandemic came, and that kind of messed everything up. And so that's when I started to do the podcast, and turns out everyone else was doing the same thing. But that just kind of led me further and further down, because I wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear people's stories. I wanted to hear people's encounters with these beings. I wanted to just find out as much as I possibly can, and that's kind of where I am today. And that's kind of loosely based on why I did the conference as well. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to get more knowledge. I wanted to hear more, and I wanted to learn more.
So when you first started going out into the field, it wasn't an organized thing or anything like that. It would just be you and a buddy saying, come on, let's go for a ride, or let's go for a walk up that hill and see what's up there, and blah, blah, blah. Or you were saying you were coming across footsteps and footprints and other evidence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Footprints aren't that uncommon, to be honest with you. People just have to look down. And if you look in the right spots, and there's areas around the Nicola Valley here where they're well known to be. If you go in those areas and you check, it might you won't get it 100% of the time, but the odd time they'll come across a nice set of tracks, and okay, that they're here, and they're obviously fishing or they're hunting, because there's lots of deer and elk around. So. But yeah, we never got organized. We were never like part of the BFRO or anything like that. We just kind of did it to mainly just to hang out with them, because we're best friends, and we still are to this day. And the other is because all three of us wanted to learn more. So
I like that. All you have to do is look down. That's going to become a motto or something. You make a T-shirt. All you have to do is look down. Yeah. So I listened to you on another podcast. I forget what it was now. Mystical Mountain or something like that. A guy from Burnaby or Langley or someplace. Anyway, you were telling him, and could you repeat it here, the encounter you had with the eyes? the glowing eyes.
Well, I've told this story many times, but so what happened was, is my brother was in town. This is kind of at the still in the early phases of our research, and I use that term very loosely because we didn't really research much except finding stuff. But my brother had been in town, and he's an RCMP member, and he's stationed up north, so he doesn't get a lot of opportunity to do stuff like this because where he is very isolated, and he's working most of the time. So he came to Merritt to visit family. My mom lives here. My brothers live in Kamloops. And my sister lives here. So he came to visit. And one day he asked, before he left, he wanted to go out squatching. That's what we called it. And he wanted to see what we do and, what was out there and just how things kind of run. And he, I didn't want to go. I wasn't in the mood. We had gone out like twice that week already. And it was just like, I kind of wanted to stay home, but he wouldn't let it go. So, okay, I sent a text to my buddy Dustin and Stanley, and Stanley couldn't make it. He had other things to do, but Dustin wanted to go. And so he brought his wife with him, and I brought my brother. So we ended up going. So, okay, we'll just go for a couple hours, and then we'll go to the nearby place that isn't too far from where I live, and we'll just do a quick trip. And if we don't see or hear anything right away, then we'll leave. So we get out to this area that we tend to go to, and we know where they are. And nothing. It's a clear, bright night. There's no wind. There's no nothing. Actually, there's no crickets. There's no birds. There was no frogs chirping. There was nothing. It was quite dead, which was odd. And we did a quick little walk through the woods, and those other three aren't too keen on going into the woods at night. It's not.
That's where the fun stops.
Yeah. So we didn't do too much of a woods walk. We just ended up going sitting in the truck for a little while and just kind of talking. And every once in a while, I have this this flashlight has a telescopic lens on it. You can beam your light closer to whatever you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So every once in a while, we're sitting there talking, and I would scan the tree line where we were parked, and nothing. And a little later on, nothing. And he was getting close to when we're leaving, and I thought, okay, I'm going to scan once more. And then I caught a glimpse of something. And it was still far enough away where I couldn't really make out what it was. So I took the end of the lens and I pushed it out to really focus the beam of light. And there was these yellow eyes, and they weren't yellow. They were more like the color of a yield light on a traffic light.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite that same shade, but that's as close to I can describe it as possible. And I zoomed in again, and this thing was black, like black. It almost looked like it was absorbing the light that was hitting it, and the light in his eyes were kind of illuminated from it. I can't explain it. I don't know why. But this thing was looking, it had its hand wrapped around a tree, and it was kind of leaning out, staring at us. And immediately I thought, what the is that? Because I went out not thinking that we were going to actually see anything. I'd never plan on that. And I told Dusty, I told everyone else in the truck, like, hey, look. And my brother, who is a cop, like I mentioned, and he has nerves of steel, completely lost his mind. He started freaking out, and he's like, oh, what is that? What the beep is that? Like he was just, and he's like rocking the truck because he's trying to get a better view. And I turned to him and I said, hey, shut the hell up. Like you shush, quiet, stop. And in that 2 or 3 seconds it took me to turn to him and then look back, that thing was gone.
And it was gone. Yeah. Now when you say it
was maybe 15 seconds at the most, but in that 15 seconds, it was enough for me to like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wow. Like, it's hard for me to describe, but you could see like the power, the strength of this thing in its hand. And I don't know how to describe it other than that, but you could see just how powerful this thing looked just by the way it was grasping that tree.
Well, you were saying
And
that you could see the glow from the eyes, but you couldn't really see anything else. It was like the fur was absorbing the light. So is that sort of like you'd say fur without the oils in it that would cause it to be like, say, when you brush a dog, its fur is so shiny and everything in the sunlight and whatnot. But you're saying it's like the fur was there, but there was no shine on it at all. It just like a mat, like matting. You just shine a light on a mat and you just get the circle and nothing else. It was like that.
pretty much.
Yeah.
In other words, like hair rather than fur.
Oh yeah, definitely hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we decided right after that we left because we didn't know what else to do. And it was very dry at that time. So we left, and Dusty and his wife went back the next morning to measure where we saw this thing from. And the tip of its head was 8.5 feet. And obviously there was no tracks because it was very, very dry. Like there was nothing left behind other than that. But yeah, that was the one encounter that we had that we just, that was the life changer. That's how I'll put it.
Yeah.
I've had other run-ins with them that weren't face to face, but that one was the one that was like, oh wow, okay, I need to know more.
How far from the subject were you, Sheldon, at the time? Do you recall?
What's that? I'm sorry.
How far were you from the subject at the time?
Probably about 100 feet, maybe a little more, give or take 20 feet or so. Yeah, something like that.
And when you describe the blackness and the darkness of it, well, you're basically saying it was blacker than the blackness of night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you could see that it was almost like a silhouette. I know none of this kind of makes sense, but that's the best way I can describe it. Fingers. I could make out the fingers type of thing, but I couldn't make out detail on the fingers.
Did the hand seem unusually large to you compared to the rest of it, or?
Yeah.
How did
that tree was probably, I don't know, 2 feet in circumference. And for that thing to be, it was covering a good portion of it when it was using it as leverage.
When you saw the hand, was it a right hand or a left hand?
It was its left hand because it was leaning out. Well, you guys are seeing it opposite, but I'm I'm mimicking.
Yeah.
The way it looked.
Yeah. What you're just demonstrating right now is your right hand. Was it a right hand or a left hand?
No, it was the left hand, but I'm showing you just for the sake of.
Oh, okay.
I just want to quickly, because I have another question to ask you about another incident that you were part of. I just want to say hello to the people in the chat, though. I mean, you've been very patient there since the show began. And so, hi, Pyromaniac, Grizzly Creek, Grasshopper. Good to see you, bud. Hey, Jonathan, Sasquatch Wizard, Pixie Bunny, and Carrie, the ever faithful Carrie. And Sharon, Bill Reed. Bill dropped in for a second just to say hi and wish everyone happy Father's Day. And now he's scurried off again. And Donnie Staten, Raptor Crazy. Hey, Raptor. And the tall ones, Brent, good to see you. See you in a few weeks, bud. And yeah, okay. And there was one other incident that you were involved in, Sheldon, that I thought, my God, would I feel the same way if it happened to me? I tried to put myself in your place and figure out what you were feeling at the time or what you were thinking. And that is the presence at the switchback.
Oh yeah.
That just hooked me for some reason, that story.
That was a day that shouldn't have happened. Everything that could go wrong that day went wrong leading up to that incident that happened. And for 100% full disclosure, I can't say with 1,000% certainty that what happened that day was a result of a Sasquatch. I'm heavily leaning towards that it was. But do you want me to share that story with you guys?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. So in our early days of research, and I'll use air quotes again, Me, Stanley, and Dustin, the three of us, decided we were going to go to this one area of British Columbia. I don't know if you gentlemen know where Headley is.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a abandoned gold mines and stuff. It's really beautiful country, actually. And we decided we were going to go there because that's where my in-laws live. And sightings in that area are really common. It's to the point where nobody really thinks twice about it anymore. It's just one of those things that happen on a kind of a regular basis. So we decided that we were going to go check this area out. And so I went and talked to my father-in-law, and he gave us quick directions on how to get up to this one certain area. And I said, okay. So we planned a day. Is that we were all working. We all worked on the same crew, so we all had the same days off, and we were supposed to leave at 9 a.m. At the last minute, Stanley backed out. I don't know what for. I think he said he had to go chop firewood or something, but he wasn't in. And so, okay, so all right, me and Dusty are going. So I messaged Dusty and I said, "Hey, what time you want to go?" He's like, "Oh, we'll go soon. I just want to go work out." Dusty's a big dude, likes to lift weights and exercise. That's what he does. So he messages me not too later on, and he got protein powder in his eye and up his up his nose. So he had to go get that taken care of and cleaned out and all that stuff. And that should have been, that should have been warning number one.
That's one.
Right? Yeah. So we were also planning on taking his side by side. He has one of those little things there,
Yep.
And okay, that's fine. And then he started having trouble getting it onto the truck. That should have been sign number two. So the day goes on, and it's 1:30 in the afternoon by now, and at this point I'm like, are we even going? Like we like it's getting kind of late for this, and I really had my heart set on it. I really wanted to go look at this area because just of the, if not for the Sasquatch, just for the abandoned gold mine part of it, because this was an old mining road that took us up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at around 2:30, Dustin finally came to my place and he picked me up, and we're off and running. And I knew right from there, as I go, we're not going to get anything done. We're not going to see anything, because by the time we get there, I think we only had like an hour of daylight left. And but oh, you know what? Oh well, let's just make the best of it. We'll try to make a good situation out of this. So we get to the area we're supposed to go. You can't drive trucks up there, or any kind of vehicles other than smaller side by sides or motorcycles or something, because just the road's been washed out, and it's really in bad shape. And so that's hence the side by side. So we get there, and sign number three was Dustin forgot the keys to the side by side. Great. So even then, I was just too stubborn to listen to the little voice in my head saying, "Go home."
Just a question. How did you forget the keys when you had to load it onto the truck?
I don't know. He changed pants because he had his one pants on, and then he put his hiking pants on. So we thought, okay, you know what? There's a little clearing not that far up the road. We just have to go through one switchback, and it's not that far. It's maybe a 20-minute walk at the most. So I was like, okay, well, let's just go up. We'll see if we can see something anyway, and we won't be here long. So we start walking, and we get to this one corner of the first switchback. And in this switchback is this absolutely humongous, size of a Volkswagen Beetle boulder that has no business being there. It didn't roll there. There's no way a machine could get in there to put it there. There was no sign of it rolling down the mountain and through the brush and landing perfectly in the middle of that road. I don't know how it got there. I'm not saying it was Sasquatch that put it there, but it seemed very, very odd that was there. That should have been warning number 4. Obviously, something didn't want us there, or anybody there for that matter. So we walked around the rock. We started climbing up, and at the top of this clearing for the next switchback, there's a clearing. And I thought, okay, well, we're here. We're looking around. I can see the sun is just about to go back behind that mountain, so we might as well just do something while we're here and then head back. So I looked at Dustin. I said, okay, I'm just going to go try a tree knock, and then we'll get out of here. So I walked about 20 yards away, and Dustin's a kitten, so he likes to stay in the safe area. So he stuck near to the road. And I walked a little bit into the brush, and I grabbed a branch that had fallen off, and I found a tree, and I'm looking around, I'm listening, and I can hear, psst, psst. So I look back, and Dustin, he's like, and I'm like, relax, like, chill out, hold on, like, we drove all this way. We're not giving up now. We're gonna do something at least. So I kind of gave him one of those, like, like one of those things, and so I knocked again, tuk tuk tuk, expecting to hear something. Didn't hear anything. So I look back, and now Dustin has an angry look on his face, and he's like, like, all right, fine, all right. This day was a wash. So I threw the stick down and walked back, and I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, he's like, do you not hear that? And I'm giving you guys the G-rated version because there was a lot of swearing happening that day. But I'm like, I didn't hear anything. What are you talking about? He goes, you didn't hear that? I'm like, hear what? And he goes, there's something walking in the tree line over there. And I'm like, I thought he was just hearing things because he's, like I mentioned, he doesn't like the scary part. And so I was like, okay, whatever, let's just go. Like, let's just go back. Like, and we'll try this again another time when there's three of us. So me and him start walking down, and all of a sudden I heard twigs breaking in the trees off to my right. And I'm like, that's odd. And he goes, see? I'm like, that was probably nothing. Like, could have been like a rabbit or something for all we know. And so we started walking back, and this is when I noticed, okay, whatever's walking with us is walking with us. Like, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's paralleling us.
Lockstep.
Yeah. So step for step. And I'm like, oh boy. So I stopped, and I looked, and I could hear, I'm like, really, really heavy breathing. And I thought, oh Christ. And instantly, for whatever reason, from the top of my head to the tips of my toes to the tips of my fingers, was just a feeling of complete fear. I've never felt that before in my life, and I've never felt it since. But my body instantly just started sweating, and I started like shaking, and Dust, we have to go. So Dust said, yeah, let's get out of here. So we started walking down, and one thing I did remember, I kept presence of mind to know, don't run. If it was a bear or a cougar or something, if the minute you start running is when you become prey. And so we managed to keep our cool long enough to not run. But as we're walking down, and take this for whatever you guys will, I've said this to other people, and I've gotten weird looks about it, but for whatever reason, I heard a voice in my head that wasn't mine, and it said, you shouldn't be here. This isn't a place for you to be. You need to leave now. And I don't know what that was. I'm not saying it's Sasquatch. I'm not saying it wasn't Sasquatch, but whatever, that's what I heard. And just out of habit or panic or a little mix of the both of them, I just said, I'm sorry, we're leaving. We're going to get out of here. I said it out loud. And I think Dustin was kind of too scared to ask me why I said that, but it didn't matter, because as soon as we were still walking, this thing was following along with us. And we got back to that rock where the switchback was, and we started walking back down. And that's when whatever it was crossed the road where we were and started following us on the opposite side of the road. Now he was on Dustin's side. And Dustin was trying to make small talk. I think he was kind of panicking. He's like, yeah, I guess this wasn't a good day for this. I'm like, not now.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah.
So we get back to the truck, and I'm shaking so bad I can't grab the handle to pull the door open. And Dustin had the doors locked anyway, so he's fumbling around for his truck keys. He gets them, and he pushes the button, and he has to come around the truck to open the door for me, because I like I mentioned, like, I'd never been that scared for something, and I couldn't get the door open. And it was about 20 yards before that is when the paralleling stopped. We didn't hear anything anymore. So we drove away, and we got to the where we went. You have to open an old barbed wire gate, and it's kind of held by pressure to keep it closed. So he's like, "You got to get out and open the gate." And I'm like, "No, I'm not getting out of this truck. No, too bad, forget it." So he got out, he opened the truck, drove through, closed the gate, and as he closed the gate, he noticed the straps on the side by side were all undone. And he's like, "Did you do that?" And I was like, "No, I didn't do that." And I don't know. And once again, not saying that was Sasquatch that did that, but it was a little weird that oh yeah, the straps were undone when we got back, but they were tight when we left. So whatever that was. So we get back and we leave, and then we don't really say too much to each other on the way home. Like there really wasn't. I didn't know what to say. I was still trying to process what that was, and then like I'm visibly scared. Like I got home and I told my wife, I'm like, what happened, and I'm still like shaking, like whatever that was, like that voice in my head. I can't explain it, and I don't know what that was, but I'm telling her what's happening, and I'm not in a good place because whatever that was scared the living hell out of me. So my father-in-law, who lives in Headley, just happened to be in Merritt at the time, and I went and asked him like, what's with that road? Like what's going on up there? And he kind of looked at me and he's like, "Oh, when did you go up there?" And I told him what time, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's all. Hey, you went there after dark." He goes, "Yeah, you're not supposed to go there after that. That's their mountain at night." Like apparently, from what my father-in-law told me, there's an older one up there that lives with a juvenile, and that mountain is theirs at night, and people are told to stay off of there. We didn't know this. And so I guess for the next couple of days, they were having a lot of howls happen around the village of Headley, and you gardens started getting raided again and that sort of thing. So we stirred up a hornet's nest apparently because we weren't supposed to be there. And we went back a week later, but the three of us, but we went during the day this time. Like, and we just kind of took some fruit and some vegetables and stuff, and we just kind of left it in a pile just to say we're sorry. We didn't know. And then we left, and we haven't been back there since to that area. We've been in Headley again, but not in that specific area.
Well,
That's that voice, though. I couldn't tell you what that was.
What do you think, Leon? Is that a case of mind speak or?
Well, we have different personalities. Like everyone has a inner voice. You guys have heard that term before. And then there's another voice, which is you have the accuser voice. That's another voice that you can get in your head. The other voice is kind of the watcher. In other words, if your system goes into a high duress situation, it's funny about your story, Sheldon, because it reminds me of the time I was stalked by
your microphone cuts in and out there, Leon.
Is it?
Yeah, you're breaking up. Maybe if you turn it up a little.
You're muted now.
Can't hear a thing.
There you go.
Well, I haven't put anything on. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. I just shut this other mic off because, like I said earlier, that's why I want to do a sound check with you. But anyways, yeah, Sheldon, your story, it reminds me of when I was stalked by a grizzly on the island, or not on the island, just on the mainland, but up by Lane Bay and stuff like that. And it did the same thing. It just kept into the tree line, and as it was coming down this mountain. The only drawback for me, the drawback was it came out of the bushes about 10 yards, maybe 10 yards in front of me. Like at the same time I walked out of the bush, it was right there. And so, but I have a couple of areas that are similar to what you're talking about. And they're always the same areas. You think if you went back after, you got spooked at one point, you going back, it would be maybe different, feel different. But every time I go into, I think there's two different main areas that it just gives me the frickin' willies. And I've never seen anything there, but it's that same thing is you're being watched. Don't be in here. Get out of here. And then you're trying to figure out, is that my primal instinct of my ancestors in me saying, something's going on here, compared to, is it something that's valid that my system is trying to make me concerned of? always err on the caution of it instead of the stupidity of, well, let's go take a look and see what it is. No, don't do that. That's not a good idea. You know, you
So
don't know
you're
what
saying
it is.
so you're
Could be
saying
a
you should
grizzly.
listen to your lizard brain.
Always, every time. If you're ever
Your lizard
second
brain
guessing
will never lie to you.
it will never. No, well, it's your survival executive function in your system. So, and it does have a capacity to sense things that are not right in your face, kind of thing. And it's like Thomas had mentioned this before, and I think I mentioned it, is when you're watching somebody in the military, you don't watch their head, you watch between the shoulder blades, because they can sense you watching them. If you want to try this, go to a restaurant and watch somebody's back of their head and see how long it takes for them to turn around and look at you. You know, there's a whole bunch of interesting. I think I mean, I'm not a big paranormal guy. There's a lot of psychological things that happen to people, and yet it seems like it could. I'm not going to say this because I know people say, well, you said it was supernatural. No, it can appear as what we would define as supernatural, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is supernatural. So, yeah, I mean, the only bad thing about that, because I have a great respect for the First Nations, is if they told me not to go up there, I wouldn't go up there. But yet that's the area that I would want to go up there and check out, right? And so, but
exactly.
It depends how many Depends I'm wearing that day when I go check it out. You know, will I have a full box of Depends, or maybe I won't eat it? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it is that, like that rabbit off of Monty Python. You know, it's just a bloody bunny. You know, it's gonna rip your head off. But I don't know. Good story.
But either way, even if it was a grizzly, either way, it's a scary position to be in.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever was in the brush.
Yeah. Then,
Because
like I mentioned,
as you say, ordinarily you would turn and say, "Whoa, I must go investigate this. It might be something I'm looking for, and you might find something you don't want to find."
That's right.
It finds you.
And like I mentioned, I can't say it with 1,000% certainty that that's Sasquatch related, but you know, for the locals and the First Nations in that area, is Sasquatch is so common. Like it's mind blowing that you know, how the people in that area just don't really. I'm trying to say they don't care, but it's not that they don't care. It's just that they don't really think twice about it anymore.
Yeah, they're ambivalent. You know, whatever, it's there. Yeah, what can you do? You know,
yeah, like Chehalis, like those
Calendar.
people in Chehalis live with them on a daily basis, and it just becomes part of life, and they just kind of deal with them then, and that's that.
There's a couple of common phrases for what you were experiencing as you were coming down on there. One is you had a bad case of the willies. Another one is a bad case of the heebie-jeebies. You get that voice. I mean, I've had that myself a number of times. And the worst case of where I thought I heard a voice, which I think was my own self-conscious common sense telling us how stupid we were for being here in the first place,
Yeah.
was when I was in the 1st Battalion PBCLI and we were doing Operation Confirmation, trying to confirm that Saddam Hussein was using chemical weapons. We got shelled. And I remember I knew they were going to hit before they did. And so did the other guys, because it was the sergeant that yelled, "Down!" And we went down, and then whomp, 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 got covered with the crap. The shells exploded. And here's the funny thing. About 5 of them hit. Only the first 2 were relatively close to us. The other ones were further away, so their spotters were terrible. And just as it was all calming down, that's when I heard the whistling through the wind and the explosions, believe it or not. It's not like in the movies. I mean, it happens, but it happens faster than the speed of sound, and that's when we heard it. After that, it already occurred. You know, but before that, something's about to happen. I knew it. I said, this is a bad place to be. And then they hit. After the sergeant said, "Get down," because he felt it too. And that first one, that must have been awful close, because I had to literally lift the stuff off of me to get out of there. And I don't know. That's the only way I can think of it, how to describe it. It's a scent. And what Liam was describing to me, another thing we were trained is, one of the things we're always taught, when you're taking out an enemy sentry, with a garrote or a knife, you don't stare at the back of his head. You stare at his lower back.
Right.
Because when you stare at somebody's back of his head, you get that feeling, the heebie-jeebies. Something's wrong, and you tend to look, right? But you stare at someone's lower back, it doesn't happen. Strangely, And
I think your experience too. And when I first got mind speak, using the air quotes, that's exactly what happened to me. And I thought, I bet you that's what people are experiencing, is this thing your body does. And if you're not in tune with your internal you primary voices, you're not going to recognize it as your own voice. So a lot of times people say, or even I'll say, it's not my type of thinking. I wouldn't put the words together like that. I would do this kind of stuff. And I think that's a lot of people who aren't used to being in the woods. That's why I try to get people to do scary things smartly, though, with structure around it, so that you can let that part of yourself expand and you can practice it more. Like that idea of, go to some night while you're by yourself, not in a place that is too terrifying, but you're by yourself, go camping and walk down the road. So you can still see your truck and you still can see the fire, but keep walking. And eventually you're going to feel the, what did you call it, Thomas? The heebie-jeebies coming to your system, where you start feeling a little weird, but you can still see the truck and still see the fire, like you let you bed there. So everything's fine. And as soon as you hit that, you feel that sense, push yourself a bit more and keep walking till you can't see the fire and you can't see the truck. Then you're going to get the heebie-jeebies. And what you're actually experiencing is what our primal ancestors experienced 10,000 years ago, of being in the bush, where you're heightening your sense of yourself. And I think this is, it's kind of classical training of bushcraft, of knowing the difference between what's in the bush when my senses are freaking me out compared to when there's something my senses are trying to warn me about. And it's a good practice to,
I think on a psychological effort, when we are in the bush, we know we are not the top of the food chain.
That's right.
We're close, but we're not the top. So you are always on that heightened alert. And I want to know, Sheldon, with this incident, this was after the incident where you actually saw something, right?
No, this was before.
Oh, okay. Now, did you experience that same sort of feeling before you had your sighting?
I don't think so. No, not that I can remember.
See, because you described things going wrong and things that seemed out of place. It's almost like your senses were heightened because of the unusual situation.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, after we got back and we took a few days before me and Dusty talked again. But in retrospect, we were both thinking, oh man, we really shouldn't have been there. And we started going through the scenario again in our head. And, that was one of those things that afterwards we realized, we shouldn't have been there.
And when you went back to lay out the food and stuff, did you have any feeling like that time?
Not at all. Not even a little bit. I think because obviously we were in the broad daylight, it was like noon or 1 o'clock or something afternoon when we went out there again. And there was 3 of us at this point. But yeah, no, nothing again after that. We haven't been back to the area since.
I think it's sort of like what I heard Oprah once say. And that's the universe keeps throwing little pebbles at you, trying to get your attention. And eventually it throws a brick at your head. I think that's what happened in that case with the switchback.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it can be kind of explained and it could be what if this or what if that. But the one thing that gets me though is how that boulder got there. The roads are so terribly maintained that there's no way a machine could have got up there. And there's obviously this one was
there
too big
wasn't any sign of where it could have come from. An excavation in the side of the road, a hole, or just
nothing like
that.
Did
the boulder seem like it had been there for some time, or it looked like it had been there recent?
No, because we
By the
had
way,
been
how
there
big was the
about
boulder?
2 weeks before that,
Yeah,
just to scout it.
yeah.
And I had my mother-in-law take me up there.
Mhm.
Not up to that one, just to the point of the switchback, because she wouldn't go any further because she apparently the locals don't go there at all. But she just took us to the switchback and showed us which way to go, and then that's when we left, and that's how we planned our day. Is because we seen, okay, well, we need the side by side to get up here and go do this and go do that.
Hmm.
But the boulder was new. That was recent, and I'm not sure where that came from.
Exactly how big was this boulder? Like, how big are we talking about?
Like an old '60s Volkswagen Beetle.
Okay.
That's big.
Yeah, it was big.
Yeah.
Did you go up with did you go up with before you went up? Were you checking out any forestry maps and Google Earth in regards to how you knew about the switchback and that if you followed it, it would take you to the location? What did you or
Well,
you just wing it?
that would take research. And like I mentioned, we were a research group.
I'm just curious. But you're still, I mean, because you work in the bush, a bit, or you're in the bush a lot too. And when I was in forestry, you would, kind of scope out where you're going up to at least to see if there's anything familiar for landmarks in case you're on the wrong track kind of thing. But that's all I was wondering about.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, we did start changing the way we were doing things after that. Like Dustin did get this big map that had all the back roads and even the tiniest little ponds on it that we could use to navigate where we're going. Like that was a learning experience, that's for sure. I mean, if I wish we kind of would have kept going with our research group because we were actually making a lot of not discoveries, but we were actually finding a lot of clues and we were finding structures in the middle of nowhere that there's no way a person would build. And it's just a pandemic kind of took all that away, and then we just never really got back into it. I started the podcast. That's why I was having difficult time dedicating time to that, and then dedicating time to obviously the family and everything else that life offers, and then trying to dedicate more time to Sasquatch research. So I had to kind of pick my battles through it after that. But I do want to get back into it. I love going out into the woods and just walking and finding stuff.
I'd like to talk to you a bit more too about your podcast, but before that, I just got one more question before we get out of this area, and that's you must have come to some kind of conclusions by now about what do you think they are? What do you think their purpose is? Is it just an animal? Is it just a grizzly bear wandering aimlessly? Is it? I mean, everybody has, I'm sure, their own opinion on what it is.
Well, I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. The best thing I can lean towards, and this is going to sound way out there, and I know how you guys might take this, but in the course of Earth's history, there's been civilizations that have come and gone, and there's always been some kind of cataclysm event that has wiped a lot of life off of Earth. The story of the flood and Noah's Ark and everything is well, every other culture around the planet has a flooding story, and they all happen around the same time. I mean, not to delve too into like biblical stuff, but there was the thing called the Nephilim that comes up from time to time.
Yep.
I don't believe that's what they are, but I do think that the Sasquatch were here when the last great cataclysm happened, and they managed to figure out where to go to survive. And I think they're remnants of a past civilization that was here before we were. And by we, I mean like Native Americans and Native. Oh, sorry, guys, one second.
Sure.
Just be quiet, guys, okay? Okay. So I think that they came from there. I know how that could sound. I know that that's probably not the answer that people want to hear. I'm sure people want to hear they're another undiscovered ape that, much like the gorillas or chimpanzees or something like that. But these beings are much too evolved for that, in my own personal opinion. I mean, they share a lot of traits that we have, like the footprints, the hands. I mean, you look at our hands compared to a chimpanzee, like they're nothing alike other than the fact we have 5 digits. I mean, their hands bend back. I mean, they have totally different bone structures. Where Sasquatch, they're more similar to us than we like to believe. To answer your question, I don't know. I try to keep an open mind, and that's where my thirst for knowledge comes, and that's why I want to learn more, and that's why I love hearing people's stories. And it seems every time I talk to somebody who's had an experience with them, I learned something, a little tiny nugget that I didn't know before. So to
Yeah,
answer your
well,
question, I just don't know.
there's a lot of mysteries in the world, and but I'm open. I'm open to suggestions to a degree, I guess.
There
And
could be similarities between that too, because there's been a number of times in our distant past where our ancient ancestors almost went extinct and we barely survived. Certain volcanic disasters like the eruption of Mount Tomboa that apparently 15,000 years ago, they say wiped out 90% of life that was around, especially they say there may have been as few as 1,000 of our human ancestors left, and we repopulated after that. You know, the end of the last ice age, when one theory that Gigantopithecus blacki crossed the land bridge. There were a number of times where huge, almost biblical floods occurred because there were huge lakes on the top of those glaciers, and when the walls let go, that water went down. There's a number of huge floods they know in our ancient past in the Pacific Northwest, the United States and Canada, took out everything all the way to the ocean.
so are we saying here that portals and such are absolutely out?
I think. I mean, the problem is if you project onto what you think is going on to something, it can take on a life of its own.
Oh, sure, certainly.
I'm surprised that more people on their YouTube channels aren't using. Is it possible? You know, all those phrases you hear on. I'm thinking of the. There's my brain glitching. By the way, everybody. You know, like,
all those
is
trigger
it possible?
points.
Can it be? The idea is maybe, you know, I have no problems with, yeah, you're on to something there, I think, Sheldon, when you talk about, you know, if we've been around for 450,000 years, seems that human beings have, because now they found structures that are 450,000 years old. That's really cranked up the 200,000 year mark to 450. And we've had these, I think there's been 5 world calamities that you were talking about. That whatever was here before has been wiped out. So if we ever had a sun flare that hit us and we weren't prepped for it, all electronics are gone. Everything. We're not going to be able to talk on here. You're not going to be able to use the phone. You're not going to be able to use your car. You're not going to be able to everything. You got about 2-3 weeks before craziness kicks in totally, where people are so scarce with what they've got, starts limiting things down, and everything that was built before and all the information that was built before is now going to be lost. And we'll be back to the idea the world's flat, because no one will be able to validate it's round, even though it's taken, 2,000 years for most of us to get that real clear understanding. It's definitely not flat. How would you know? Oh, but this is how we know, and that's the nice thing about it. But a lot of the stuff we wouldn't know, and I don't know. Like, when I think of what these things might be, which I have no idea what they are, and I don't think anyone really does. I like the idea, though, that, yeah, they're a little higher primate than, we have one chromosome difference between us and a chimpanzee. Just one. It's surprising we haven't burned everything down already. Sometimes we've come up pretty close to it. So, if these things are more like us, that's the other reason why I keep asking, like, developmental questions in regards to what people are telling their stories or the testimonies. I want to find out, what capacity they have, because that'll tell me what kind of brain they have. So do they have a language? Well, if they have a language, they can't have a large neck that leans forward, because there's no space for vocalization, vocals inside the throat. If they can go underwater and choose with intent to hold their breathing and then come up, take a peek, go back down and take a peek. Well, you need that mechanism so that you can have language. You have to have the ability to control your breathing when you're doing any type of form of communication. So, and I think those are kind of questions that more interest me to help me understand and maybe track them down. I can do that now, but I'm still working on that area. But the idea of, what is their capacity? So if they have a capacity to live in the bush, I don't know. I don't think they can do fire. Again, there's a lot of people say, well, the First Nations talk about them all this time. Yeah, but a lot of times the First Nations have different stories of them. Sometimes it's to a First Nations person, they'll say, it's a blessing if you see one. And other First Nations will say, it's not a blessing if you see one. It's a curse to see one. So, what story do you fall on? Well, probably the one that had the curse is the one that had a bad experience. The one that had a blessing had a positive experience. It didn't rip its head, their heads off,
There's probably a lot of truth to that.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of that fine line that you kind of.
I don't think it's necessary for them to have a language. I don't know why people keep going on and on about language.
You don't have to have a language.
Animals. If it's zoological, it's an animal. Mm-hmm. Animals don't have conversations with each other. Animals live off of body language, mm-hmm. and of course, an odd vocalization that serves a purpose. But I mean, you don't see two dogs sitting down having a conversation. They don't need it, and they can understand each other much better than people. One person can understand another person. They can feel your emotional state. They can see your emotional state. They can smell your emotional state. So what more can language tell them? Besides, language is very deceptive anyway. People can say one thing and mean another thing. But body language and such, and Leon, you would agree with this, body language and such does not lie.
No. And the thing about we as humans, we only take in about, I think it's 13% or something like that, as far as what's spoken. We're reading mm-hmm. automatically because we have our executive functions that read people, and you read people in microseconds before you're even thinking of what you're about to talk to them about. You've already read them. Someone comes into the room. I'll set a class up for that, and I'll have certain people look dressed a certain way and look a certain way because I know immediately their body language of seeing that type of person means that they're not part of my tribe, right? But when you're looking at what was I going to go with this? I wanted to ask a bit because we're getting a little short in time. I want to ask Sheldon, when you were doing your show and you had, people sharing their story, were there a couple that stood out to you that were quite impressive? Or
well, to be honest, a lot of them. Not in particular. I mean, overall, though, I did learn one thing is that I can't pinpoint one episode in particular. I just can't because I love hearing stories and I love hearing people's experiences. But the one thing I took away from doing the podcast, though, was sensationalizing of Sasquatch was really prevalent. And what I mean by that is people love the scary part of Sasquatch stories, and that sells. And I didn't want to do that because most of the time, I think there's one or two or maybe three or four, whatever, people that I've talked to had kind of scary encounters with them. The rest, they were quite passive, and it was more of a run in and like an, oh my God, what's that type of moment. The biggest thing I took away from my podcast, though, is I learned that, okay, these beings aren't terrifying animals that you should be trying to hunt down and murder because they're going to kill out everyone if they get the chance to. No, not at all. I've learned that it's quite the opposite. I think that's what they think about us.
Yeah.
I mean, to answer your question, Leon, I can't nail one down in particular. I mean, there was one, I think there was a dude in Oregon who really had me on the edge of my seat with his story, where he was out camping and he got surrounded by about 5 of them, and one stood in the middle of the road and he had to drive in the ditch to go around. But like I said, the fear part of these stories sell, and I'll admit that one got me, and that's the one that kind of sticks out, but it's for the wrong reason, I think.
You see, it's like a psychological thing. The intro to this show, instead of blasting heavy rock music or heavy metal music or scary music, look what I got. look what I got. You know, a Hawaiian guy with the ukulele singing, and you got pictures of cute little fuzzy kind of cartoon Sasquatch, instead of this one with the blood dripping out of his jaws and a half-naked girl running away from him.
Bangs.
I mean,
Yeah, and big bangs.
why do people insist on painting this creature if it exists in that kind of light? Why can't it be a big cuddly panda bear that just lives in the forest and wants to be left alone and mind its own business? Because as Sheldon said, and as we all know, that doesn't sell. That doesn't increase your subscribers. That doesn't get you any excessive likes on your channel or anything like that. But it's probably closer to the truth than anything.
Yeah,
I wanna add-
it's
Go ahead,
oh,
Joe.
sorry.
Go ahead,
It was one of the other reasons I didn't want to continue with the podcast too much, because that's a lot of that's what people were kind of asking for.
Yeah.
And I didn't want for me to go, to know that these beings aren't these violent monsters that, you know, the media and other shows make them out to be, whereas I knew that they're not. I feel I would be doing myself a disservice as well as the audience if I tried to portray that and do that anyway. So that's another reason why the podcast kind of got put in the back burner.
Yeah, I really have
Morals.
yeah, scruples. That would be interesting. Yeah, morals and scruples and ethics. Yeah, I almost pity the person who proves they exist, because I don't know how you're going to live with, once you get one body. Say they find one body, human beings now will know if they're there, and they're going to go out there in droves to find them, so they can be the number two and get their 5 minutes of fame and stuff. So so I know, so like, if I ever came across one, I have enough evidence to come across one, I'd have to do a lot of soul searching of how am I going to unravel or unfold this for, I don't want to say general public.
It'll be a very slow, drawn out process, Leon.
Well, you'd have to be, because I mean, you'd want to save them, because you would feel terrible if we got in there and just wiped the living crap out of them because of our curiosity, we would say, you know. And I think you're right. When you look at the amount of people who have claimed that they have bumped into a Sasquatch, and the percentage of them where they're dead, as far as I know, it's zero. You know, they might have got like down here in Penticton, that one with the I think he was a trapper back in 1890 or something like that, where he fired out one and came over and gave him a good throttling, and he never did it again. But to me, it's like, yeah, you're almost looking at something that's like a panda. Not saying it's a panda though, because I'm pretty sure it's, you watch monkeys do things to other monkeys and they're just flipping them around like you're watching a Transformer show, you know.
No, I was talking about temperament, attitude.
Yeah. Anyways, but that's all I want to share.
So
if science gets what science has always demanded, the first thing that's going to happen is that slow merry-go-round of confirmation will come. Other scientists will have to look at it. Then some politician will go, gee, do we need to protect these things? Then that slow merry-go-round will start up and going. I mean, that's just the way the system works and the way it always has. I mean, no one in a position of power, i.e. political, scientific, is going to give a rat's ass about the Sasquatch or its future until it's proven to exist.
And is that a good thing?
Some people think it's better if they are not.
It seems to be doing quite well without us. The only thing it needs protection from is us.
Well, because one thing, assuming that they do exist, one seems to be rather obvious. They are seem to be perfectly aware that humans in general are bad news.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. They are bad news.
Mm-hmm.
Sheldon, where did you find your guest? Run through the process for us. Did you advertise other sites, or how did you get off the ground with your podcast?
Well, initially the podcast was only meant to be British Columbia based, Um, I came across problems of people just don't want to talk about it. There's that stigma that's still attached to it. But so I had to expand it out. And in order for me to do that, what I would do is I would just look through Facebook groups, and somebody had an encounter. I just message them with Messenger or whatever and ask if they wanted to come on. And that's how I got most of them. And soon after that, people just started emailing me wanting to come on, and or they'd be referred to from friends or something like that. And that's kind of how I went about getting my guests. Facebook kind of really did a disservice though, because that's a lot of podcasts started doing that, or maybe I was late to the party, but podcasts, that's how they were getting their guests. So it was a mad scramble to get to talk to somebody after they had already been on another podcast or whatnot. So it was a struggle, but yeah, that's how I went about it.
Yeah. So do you find, was there a cutoff point for you with any particular guest? Did you ever arrive at the conclusion that this guest is just yanking your chain? I don't believe a word he's saying. How do I get rid of him?
Oh God, there has been a lot. There was one in particular, and I'm not going to obviously name names, but he was a gentleman from Alabama, and he told me everything I wanted to hear before the interview started. Oh yeah, I see them all the time. They live in these woods, and I feed them, and they come in my yard. All the good stuff that a podcaster for Sasquatch wants to hear. And we get recording, and I'm opening up the software, and I'm listening, and I instruct them on what we're going to do and all this stuff. And then as soon as record button hit, his story completely changed. And then it went into wizards and there's elves and things running around, sprites is what do you call them, in the woods. And the only way you can see them is if you use Snapchat, and there's a certain filter on Snapchat that lets you see. And it was just like, I stopped it, and that's the only time I ever stopped the interview, was that one time.
Were your shows live or recorded?
No, I recorded them. Thank goodness.
Thank God for that. That'll never see the light of day. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's been a few. I probably say around probably less than 10 that I had to just completely just throw away, because I couldn't do anything with them, or people would swear way too much, or they just. Yeah. Other than that, but that one story, I asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, this wasn't what you told me. And he goes, no, I would need to get the truth out there. So, all right. So I just hung up the phone, and I never talked to him again.
Sheldon, I had a lot of wacky interviews too over the decades that I didn't believe, and I just sort of politely let them finish, and then I never used it again. I use the tape for something else. I now wish I had kept them, because they would have made an interesting book all on their own. Weird and Wacky Sasquatch Stories. I mean, that would have been a great book.
It would have sold.
Well, I was thinking, I was just thinking, I was still kind of new. It was probably 6 months into the whole podcast game, and I was trying to maintain my integrity and the integrity of the show and the interviews and whatnot. And so I was like, I can't use this. What am I going to do? So it got put into the old delete pile. Yeah.
So tell me, what led up to the Merit Gathering last year? I'd like to hear the story. I mean, what's involved in creating a conference?
Boy,
did you bounce it off some friends who said, oh, that sounds like a good idea? Then you went to the local council, and then you had to get a license to rent the place out. And did you figure out times that, well, I don't even know why I got into this?
I'm asking myself that every single night for the last couple of weeks. How did that come together? I actually, it was me and Dustin, my friend Dustin. We were kind of talking about, getting back together and doing the research again. And I said, you know what, we should do a conference. So I put it out on our Facebook group. When people want to get together and maybe talk Sasquatch and stuff, not even thinking conference, just a bunch of people getting together and talking about it. And a mutual person that we all know, and I'll leave nameless, mentioned that, we should do a conference. Okay. All right. I'm into that. And luckily, I had worked at a hockey arena. I had access to the facility. So that's when you guys all came
Yep.
to. And it just kind of went from there. I really had no idea what I was doing or what I was getting myself into. And it was very quickly thrown together. Like it was very last minute almost. And I didn't really know what the steps were. I just kind of looked at other conferences and said, okay, they're doing this, 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 and this. I'm going to try to do that. And I put the word out, and to my surprise, I was like completely shocked about the amount of attention it got. Like I was blown away by the willingness for people to come. Like I had 200 and I think 20 tickets for sale, and I thought, oh, you know what, maybe 100 people will show up, maybe if I'm lucky, and that'll be a good turnout. But no, like it sold out within 2 weeks. I had to put a few more. I had to find some more chairs to find so I can add more seats to the thing, and I had it blew my mind. Just there you go, there you are. Yeah, I have those around here somewhere. But it blew my mind just how successful it was. I mean, I wish I had taken more time to really organize it and really get things put together the way it probably should have been. But that's what this year is going to be about.
Well, what can be
I'm
more
sorry.
Canadian, Sheldon, than having a Sasquatch conference in a hockey arena?
Guess so, yeah.
Think of the irony.
Well, we're not doing it in that arena this year. I didn't find the acoustics were very good in there. It's not built for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I moved it to there's a secondary college in Merritt. It's called an NVIT, Nicola Valley Institute of Technology, and they just built a brand new gymnasium that's they use for graduations, fundraising, dinners, that sort of thing, and conferences, obviously. So that's where we're going to have it this year. It's a much bigger space. It's much nicer. It's in town. It's closer to all the amenities and all that stuff. So it worked out better.
So you switched it from May to August?
Yeah. That was just a time thing. I switched positions at my job. I went from doing shift work to doing straight days, and I was just not I wasn't able to organize things when I was doing shift work. It was just way too difficult.
And
You're kind of lucky you did, because May this year was an absolute washout, and the Coca Hall was actually closed during the 19th.
There you go. Things happen for a reason, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sheldon, you're having it over 2 days this time. Are you plugged in with the local campground or something like that for people to, hey, what's going on? They are real. Okay. Hello? Can you hear me?
Carry
still?
on.
Okay. Anyway, Sheldon, I was wondering, if people wanted to go for the 2 days, is there camping available for them or anything like that?
Yeah, and I'm going to be really we still have just under 2 months to get that done, and or to before the conference begins. But I am in works with a local campground that's like 10 minutes out of town. It's a full RV hookup type of situation. But I also am recommending that people use the local hotels and stuff. I did post one on my Facebook group about the Comfort Inn. They're really nice. It's a newer hotel in town, and so send a message. And I'm kind of directing people that way. From the feedback I'm getting so far, because tickets did go on sale already. But the one thing I'm finding is that people are going to pick it one of the 2 days to come. So people are just waiting for the speaker lineup announcement before they decide which day they're coming in.
Right.
Which I will be releasing. I can do it actually right now if you guys want.
Ooh, we get what's it called? For a first crack at it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well,
okay, so let me go through this here. I've got obviously the lovely and talented Thomas Steenberg coming. He's going to be speaking on Saturday.
You happy there on the Saturday or the Sunday? Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Okay.
And I have Alex Solyanak is coming back.
Nice.
And let me just preface this before I say anything, but if I haven't invited people back, it's not that I don't like you or anything. I'm trying to switch things up a little bit this year. And that's all it is. It's nothing personal or anything. I loved everybody who spoke last year. I'm just trying to bring something new to it. So Leon, so just
No, fine.
you're still
I'm
coming.
fine.
Then I have myself. Obviously, I'm going to try to do a live podcast Q&A type thing. I'm reaching out to people if they want to come up stage and maybe tell their encounter, and then we'll have maybe an audience question and answer period with that. And the headliner on Saturday, the person that is I was so excited and so pumped when he said he was coming and he was going to show up and be the keynote speaker on Saturday, is Dr. Jeff Meldrum.
Oh, really? Hmm.
Yeah. I'm really
Up with,
excited. I
up with the
was
big boys
so-
now.
Yeah,
I
guess
have
so.
one request.
What's
One
that? Sorry,
request.
Thomas?
I have one request.
Sure.
You say he's speaking on Saturday?
He's just,
Yeah.
oh, I know what's coming.
Do not schedule me right behind him.
No, I actually have you going first.
Good, because twice now he went overtime so much. I just got started my talk, and they're telling me to wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I concur with Thomas on that from last year. One of the things was some of the guest speakers have a 60-minute, like say you got a 60-minute time to do your talk in 60 minutes, have a 5-minute warning noise, because I had to cut mine short. I couldn't get to where I wanted to go with, because I kept getting everything kept getting pushed back because people wanted to keep talking. It's like, just go outside and talk. You don't have to bring us all into this. But yeah, I would definitely have to get that way. It's also controllable for you, and it's predictable for the audience. They're not, the audience won't get frustrated because they might have
Jeff Meldrum and I know each other, but it's just a bad habit. He likes to get it when he's determined to talk. He'll talk, and if you only give him an hour and he wants to talk longer, he'll go on. And I was the next guy, and I was just getting started. They're telling me to wrap it up. And Jeff, God bless him, he was apologizing. He said, "Sorry, I know I went way over." I said, "Yeah, I know. You did it to me again." Yeah.
And then for Sunday, I got my list right here. So I have Judy Carroll coming back. I have Scott Taylor from the BFRO coming. Dave Scott, who is Spaced Out Radio. I don't know if you guys know him or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have Mel Scahan on Sunday.
Ooh.
Oh, Yakima. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mel's gone.
I'm just saying, I'm getting the promotional posters done. I was kind of hoping I would have had this done by now, but I'm waiting for Alex to send me a photo that I can put on the poster, and he hasn't got back to me yet, so I'm still waiting for that one. But the poster should be done within the next week, so they'll really start promoting. I'll start putting it all over Facebook. I'll really get the promotional machine running. But I think, with the lineup that we have, it's going to be, well, I'm fingers crossed that it's going to be even more successful than last year's.
By the way,
Well,
you
the
can
nice
find
thing-
out more
you can
about
use
the
it for-
2024 Nicola Valley Bigfoot Conference in the notes section below. We've put in a link to Sheldon's website conference page, and you can even order your tickets there. So look for that in the notes section below, and you can just...
And just for clarification of our audience, it's the 10th and the 11th of August, correct?
Saturday, Sunday, yeah.
So yeah, that should be fun. The first one was fun, and this one should.
What
even
time
be
in the
better.
morning does it start, by the way? Like,
9. Well, the doors will open at 9, and then that just kind of gives everyone time to come in and maybe search the vendors, and then everything will get started at 9:30, and we'll wrap up hopefully around 4:30, 5 o'clock.
mm-hmm.
I'm just going down the chat section here, and BCQ, welcome, and Sharon, welcome. Nice to see you're still there, Jonathan. Sasquatch Secrets, hey Nikki, how you doing? She says there's 2 tent spots left, and Sheldon is more than welcome to one of them should he decide to mosey on down this way. July 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. That's a Wednesday to a Sunday. So, will you be coming down, Lord Leon?
Well, I'm hoping to. It's just my capacity. That's the problem. capacity, not necessarily physically as much as sleepy. I was going to talk to you offline on that, Jerry.
Sure. Okay. And
but I do have a guy to take me down there. He was the guy who helped me down at your conference last year, because that's when I first came into the hospital. I couldn't walk up the stairs to the podium, and he was going to help me up the stairs so I didn't fall over.
Yeah.
But
so aside from that,
so
that's
coming, which reminds me, I want to ask you a quick question. Is the roads both sides of the lake clear all the way up to Pemberton, or no?
No.
Okay, which is one of the sides opened?
Well, the west side of Harrison Lake is. Oh, excuse me. Did you say Pemberton?
Well, I wanted to get to the top of the lake, or past the top of the lake. There used to be
he
a
wants
way
to go hit the pavement again.
to get over to Whistler.
There's no Harrison Lake, you mean?
Yes.
The west side goes all the way up past Little Wet Lake, connects to Route, what is it, 99 up there? Right. Eventually. The road on the east side only goes as far up as Mount Breckenridge, and it stops.
It's a dead end.
Yeah.
It's a dead end.
Okay, thanks. So the west side is open, okay.
The west side is...
is it washed out?
The last time I was up there, the Doctor's Creek was washed out. We had to take the UTV on a creek crossing there. And but we were going to Port whatchamacallit.
Port Hardy.
No. The port up at the top of the lake.
Old man trying to remember things.
Senility has set in. But yeah, that wasn't all the way up to where is it where you hit the 86-kilometer mark, and then you go all the way up, then you get to the hot tubs, and then it starts going all the way down back to 1 again, and then you're on the highway back to Pemberton.
I don't know. Thomas probably knows. He's probably looking it up right now while we're.
I think it's.
Let me know later on. It's not a big rush. It's just that my friends who might be taking me up there might drop me off, and then he's just going to continue way up, and head up that
Port
area.
Douglas.
Port Douglas, thank you. Yeah, that bridge was washed out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think you get to a point to go to the hot springs one way and Port Douglas the other way. It's a fork in the road. And I don't know whether you go on from Port Douglas on up to Pemberton, if it's all part of the same route or not. You should look at a forestry
If you
map.
want to go all the way up, once you get to Port Douglas, make sure you cross the bridge to the east side of the Harrison River, because that's the one that goes all the way up to the highway past Little Wet Lake. If you take the one to the west, which gets you to that other hot springs, it will go all the way up to Little Wet Lake and stop, and you'll have to come all the way back.
Yeah, well, we can share. We can share.
Your tank is full before you start.
We can share that anytime. Just want to say it's close to the top of the hour here. Sheldon, it's been an absolute delight having you, my friend. We got to do it again. And you've got to get your podcast on the go again. People need that place to unload their burden. And, it feels righteous again that they've done so. And I want to thank all you guys in the chat. Dickie, we will talk to Sheldon and twist his little rubber arm to get him to come down for a couple of days, maybe in the first part of July. Leon, we know where you live. Come to think of it, we don't know where you live, so he'll be able to duck out on us, Nicky.
He's hiding.
That's all part of the great plan. Yeah. He moved and never told anyone where he moved to. Yeah, guys, great show. Thank you very much. And happy Father's Day to everybody out there. And we'll see you again, God willing, same time, same station next Sunday. So, okay, guys, take care.